everyone, Tony Avdoka here. Today we're going to be looking at the shocks, the 1/10 shocks. So we're going to build some shocks, and this is part of the overall build for the Gen 3. So they're two-wheel drive shocks, and with no further ado, let's proceed to that. See what we've got on our work area here at the office at Rude Bits. So here we have a selection of bits. You can clearly see, let me put that tool away. These are the rear shocks, part of the kit, like I said. These are the front shocks already laid out of the packet just to save some time. And with no further ado, we'll talk about the pistons. So the Serpent cars come with a cluster of pistons like this. Let me just quickly go to the zoom cam to show you. So they come with a cluster of pistons like this. Let me sort that out properly. So as you can see, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, and I think there's a 1.4. Let me just see what this one is. Let's put that up there. Is that a 1.4? Is that a blank? No, it's a blank. So you've got a selection of two-hole pistons, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, and a blank. So the blank you can drill to anything you like. Now the reason for that, although to be very fair, it's never been clarified to me as a driver or as a distributor either, is because they give you a selection that you can try and see which one you like. So that's great. I do, as a RC driver, do recommend that once you've tried and you discover what you like, maybe 1 or 2 meetings, not much more than that, to then remove these plastic pistons out of your car and go to the proper machined nylon pistons that you can see here. And again, let me just go to the zoom cam to show you what I've done. So let's put that on my hand. This is a piston that's been drilled out to you can see 1.6. This one is. Oh, just dropped it onto the towel, hence why I use a towel. These are the rears, and these ones, as you can see, oh, if I can keep it on in my hand long enough to show you, these are, as you can see, these are drilled out to 1.7. So 1.7 in the rear for this car, 1.6 in the front, and with no further ado, you can see all the bits and pieces here. Let's build them. So the first thing that I do with any new shocks is clean the shafts. So the shafts already been cleaned. You use maybe like a motor cleaner or something similar. Just get them nice and clean, and the reason for that is it's very simple really, that all manufacturers, Serpent especially, they oil and or grease or something on all aluminium parts. These likewise, you can wash these out, but you must make sure that they are totally bone dry before you proceed with your build. So with no further ado, like we've said a couple of times already, let's get cracking. So these have been cleaned, these are all the oil seals, but we will go one stage further and we will just look. It's an absolute smidgen on my hand. I mean, it's a nothing really. Grab the oil, the O-ring that's going to go round and inside the ring, which is the adjusting ring. So as we slide this into the ring, the O-ring inside, that gives it the stability. So it's as it goes up the body, it gives it the hold, if you like. It's also lubricated. I think this is extremely important, and a lot of people fail to do this. The reason it's important is when you come to adjust it, it's quite critical that you know, it's smooth. You know, it's, you know, God, I can't turn it, and, you know, more or less need a pair of pliers to get on. That's no good at all. So on the same token, I continue just dabbing my hand in there. Although these O-rings, as fabulous these race O-rings are, and although they're pre-oiled, you can still see that I am even more meticulous with them, and I just grab, you can see I just manipulate them in my thumb and finger there, as you can see, make sure that they are lubricated. But what you can also see is that they're not hanging with the grease. So these are the O-rings that will seal the cap to the shock. So we will, as you can see, we will manipulate that, so that's nicely lubricated too, and so is this. And once we get to the situation that we've done all the lubrications, we will then put the grease away. Now there is another little O-ring on here. Let me see if I can very quickly switch to the zoom cam, see if I can show you that. Let me grab a driver to put this on, put this screw on, and then it'll be a lot easier to show you what I'm doing. So as you can see on the zoom cam, there is an O-ring on that screw. I've just been handed a lovely cup of tea as well, so bonus for me. So that oil seal is the bleed screw, as we call it, and that will have a little bit of lubrication, but again, don't think that it's much. Look, if I can just try and do it on the camera, look, it's just a smidgen. It's, you know, these don't have to be tight. It's just a smidgen. Put that down. Make sure we do the next one as well. And I'm not going to build all four, guys. So I'm just going to build the even the one or the pair. And once that's done, obviously it's the same for the rear. Now all the lubrication is done. So everything is how it should be. We can just put our grease away. This is an O-ring seal. As you can see, it's a lube. There are many makes available. Rude Bits do one just like any other good outlet. So that's that. We can put these on the bodies if we want early, or we can not. I'm going to sort of wait for a second. So I've just seen some sort of residue there. Bear with me a second. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's where I washed it off or something. With no further ado, we go to the pistons. So what we're going to do here is we've got the shaft, and let's just, maybe the zoom cam might be better for this. So there's the shaft. With these, you can see right on the end here. I'm not doing a very good job of this today, am I? So right on the end here, you can see that we've got a little sort of shaft part where the piston sits, and then obviously the nut will go on top. And then obviously the opposite side of it is where the bottom of the shock will go. So let's carry on with the pit. I'm not sure that that's even the right thing. Maybe this one's better. So let's have I mean, obviously I don't need to follow a manual. I've done this many times. So we need a washer on there. We need the piston on there. And we need our little nut on there. Now at this stage, I think you'll find that the manual tells you to Loctite the nut. I don't Loctite my nut, right? So it's entirely up to you guys if you want to. But what I do is I do grab my shaft. I'll make sure I've got it nice and tight, and I'll make sure that with my tool that nut is also tight. That's how I do it. So luckily, I don't jinx myself, I've never had one fall apart, but I do it quite tight. The washer behind the piston is your safeguard in a way, sort of allowing you that you can do it tight. But if you're doing it on these black pistons, that's where I don't think you can. I think these black pistons, and only because of the material, nothing to do with design or anything like that, I've got a feeling that if you was going to put some real pressure on them, they could expand. So you don't really want the piston to expand and go tight in the shock body, of course. I'm not sure they would expand that much, but you know, you certainly don't want that risk factor. So we have the nuts, we have the shafts with the pistons on them. So now we just put them to one side because they're concluded. We're concentrate on the bottom of the shock bodies, and if I see again, go back to this cam, the shock body there, you can see it. In there is where we're going to insert all the O-rings and everything else. I don't know if you prefer me keeping it on here, but I'll try and sort of work it like that so you can see what's going on. Now these washers, some of them look very, very similar, some of these white washers, so please be very, very careful because they're not the same. There's different thicknesses, and there's also one here with a step. So this one with a step goes in first, and it's critical that you make sure that you get this the right way round, guys. So what I mean by that is the step has to go down, so it steps into the recess of the shock body and holds nicely in there. So it's a stepped washer facing down, very important, then an O-ring, and then a thick washer like so, and then an O-ring. So that is your sequence of building the shock bottom. So I'll put that just there for now, and just quickly do the other one. So just a quick repeat, make sure she doesn't spin as she goes in, as this one has just done. So it is very important that it doesn't spin on you, and very, very important that when you've got this, you know that the step is downwards, and you just push that down, make sure she's in place. So stepped washer facing down, O-ring, the fat spacer between the O-rings, and then the last O-ring. So that one's done as well. So there's two of them, but it will be very easy to grab the cap and just put it on like many do. So I'm now going to just go back to my cam here and just tell you that I will get my reamer, and I will actually, and I actually want to see if I can show you this, if I can. This hole here, right? Bearing in mind this is a molded part, okay? I want to make sure that that hole with my reamer is very slightly bigger than the factory, and I'm going to just put that there, and I'll see if I can just show you on here how much I've taken off. You could just see that amount that I've just shaven off, and I'm going to do it both ways, guys. So as you can see, I'm doing it from the inner and from the outer. The reason for that is, and I'm very gentle, I don't sort of press hard, just want to make sure that I don't have a step in there as such. I just want the hole to be very, very slightly bigger. The reason I want it to be bigger, and I will explain while I'm doing it, excuse me if it's not very clear, what, you know, in the sense of just me remirroring a little bit of plastic. The reason is this: when a buggy, whatever make, whatever you've got on your hands, is going round and round and round, excuse me while I just blow out any excess that might be there. When that buggy is going round, the force of this shaft, the force sideways that it will get may rub up against that hole. it's quite a precise hole, so therefore I just like it a little bit bigger. It doesn't make any difference to anything else, because this will now just screw on the bottom of that, and it will, and pinch tight, no tools or anything, just pinch tight, and that is, as far as I'm concerned, that's done. And the shaft will go through it. The seal can never drop out of there, of course, and if you wanted to, as an option, you can actually buy some beautiful aluminium bottoms for these shocks. I think it's part number 500 450, I believe, so look that up if you like. Some really nice shocks there, so shock bottoms I should say. So now we've got washers, these washers are a little bit of an odd size. A lot of people think they're 1mm and 2mm, and they're not, and they think they're 1/2mm and 1mm, and they're not. They're 0.75 and 1.5. okay, so they're 0.75 washers and 1.5, so two of them will obviously be 2.25, and so on, if you wanted to equate. In the front, I like just the one thick washer, and I'll explain to you why I like that. Because with one thick washer, you naturally get that little bit more droop, and with that little bit, and because you can see I'm putting it on the bottom of the shaft, right? So just to for people that might be even more curious in what I'm doing, I've put it on the bottom of the piston. Yeah, so there's the washer, one of the thicker ones, so 1.5mm. So there's one without. You can see the silver washer. There's one without, and as I pick up the washer and slide it on here, as you can see, so there she is with a washer. Okay, now I like a little bit more droop. The little bit more droop does loads of different things. A little bit more droop, in my opinion, gives you a little bit more exit drive, and it also lands better. So that's the way that I like my two-wheel drive buggy, and that's what I do. So we get the shock, we've got all this built, we slide that through the top like so, bring it out to the bottom. There's one. Let's repeat on the second one. So we slide that in, bring it out to the bottom, and there's two. Now again, at this stage, we don't need that washer, but we're going to save that with all the little bits and pieces like we always do. So anything that's left over, that's why you will see always I have the bags here. I will drop them in the bags, and they are the spares that go in the box, and that's how we conduct business, if you like. You know, that's basically the right way in doing it, in my opinion. So let's take a shock cap, and we'll just quickly examine this this rubber seal. This rubber seal, you will notice that it's slightly domed on one side and flat on the other. The flat side is the side that I use to seal up against the body here. So therefore the domed part goes in first, and because it's all nicely lubricated, it drops in there very nicely. Take it on the other shock cap. I use my sort of fingernail to sort of push it into place. If for some reason it doesn't, I will suggest that you use some sort of blunt side of a driver or something similar, but don't use anything sharp that's going to obviously damage that seal in any which way or form. So that's that. I'm now going to take the collar, the adjusting collar. This is the tedious part. So I'm going to just wind that up somewhat, and there is a little trick that I do here, which I will show you in a moment. Let's just put that on so it's they're both on there. And this next part that I'm going to tell you about, the collar, is in my opinion again important. Let me just, before I stab myself, put my reamer away. So I've got to that stage now, and I still haven't put a shock bottom to it. So with no further ado, I will grab the, here we go, the Aromax shock pliers, or whatever you want to call them. I will put that there, and I will just start that off like so. And if you've seen any of the other previous videos, you will see that I've got a tool for the ball joint. So I put my tool, ball joint tool on, and I just wind it. If I actually put it on properly, I'll be in business. And I will just wind my wind the bottom on to the shock, as so, as you can see. It's funny because when you're doing these videos, you feel you want to get on with it. You don't want the videos to be too long. So here I do have different measurements that I obviously use for setups. And what I mean by measurements is I measure the distance of my shaft. So you will see that on my setup sheets. I measure the distance on my shaft. But on this occasion, what we're going to do is very simple, because it's not a final finish, if you like. We wind it up so there is just no thread showing. We don't go beyond, we don't leave thread showing. For a standard kind of build, we would just we'll get that to that situation where the bottom cup has gone on with no thread showing. So let me sit that back into my tool, and let's get the other one put on as well. Let me just start it off. Now let me tell you something about this, because there's a lot of people, they say, "Oh Tony, that's not the right way. Why are you doing it like that?" And this is what they do, right? It's an easy way, but this is what they do. They get that, they put it through here, and then they wind it like so. Well, let me tell you, while you're winding it there and there's no pressure on it, that's fine. But as soon as it gets to the point where there's pressure on it, you're actually damaging that part there, and then you're wondering, when you're pressing your car up and down and feeling your suspension travel, and you know, oh, do you think mine's smooth or stiff, or whatever, you're talking with your colleagues and you're wondering why it's gone all stiff and horrible. That's because your ball cups in your plastics are not nice and free, and I don't do that for that particular reason. So that's the way that I do mine. Again, everyone has a different way. The objective of these videos are very simple. They're just to show you my way. If you learn something, great. If you don't, then unfortunately you've wasted some time listening to me. But that's basically the moral of the story. So here we are, nice and smooth up and down. I also have another way of checking where I'm at with the length of my shocks. If I go to this cam again, you will see that the piston, if I can get it in the piston, there we go, the piston just, and I mean just, comes to the top. So if I do this and press the piston at the same time in, you will see that when it comes out, it just comes out to the top. And if I show you the other one, oh, he says, you can see is the same, is exactly the same. And that's because I've wound the bottom cup with no thread showing. That's the reason for that. So here we are, and there's no reason why we can't move on to put some oil in, and this is the way that I do that. But before we put oil, if you recall any of the previous videos, I like to make sure the threads are right. So I put the cap on, I tighten the cap, and I take it back off again. And once I've done that, that is my cap for that one. I'm very, very funny about things like that. I won't swap caps afterwards. My cap for that one is going to be that one, and the cap for this one is going to be this one. It's just as simple as that. Likewise for the rears. So when you see me at trackside, sometimes you will see that I do this, because they now become a pair. If they've gone together like that, they become a pair. It's just as simple like that. So here we are, and we're going to put some oil in. Now in this particular setup, I'm going to be using a 550 oil, and only because for video purposes I'm not going to use the cap the way that it's supposed to. I'm going to show you a slightly different way. So we're going to top up with oil. I think there is another video that I've done on this. The shaft is currently all the way down. We put oil halfway. We put the shock piston through the oil, so it's gone through the oil. The objective of this is to get the oil to be behind, or I should say underneath, the piston. That's the objective at this stage. We then draw back down. As you can see, I'm drawing back down the piston into the oil. This would bring it up to the top, and at this stage I'm going to put it on the stand and just let it rest. I've got a big theory about these bubbles and pressure things on shocks. I'm just quickly going to do this while I'm talking. You know, whether it's right and wrong, and whether you should and shouldn't have bubbles. Let me tell you this: when you have this type of setup on a shock, as soon as you go on track, you won't even do one corner and you will have bubbles in your shocks. I promise you that. If you don't believe me, pressurize them, take all the air out of them, go and do that one corner and try and prove me wrong, and you will see that what I say to you is categorically correct. You will have air in your shocks. It's just as simple as that. So the idea of this, of course, is that you feel good to begin with, and of course you are looking for well, you might want some back pressure on your shocks. I don't like back pressure on my shocks, so that's the reason for this. So we've got that ready, but what we're going to do is while that sort of quickly rests there, we're going to put these bleed screws in the shock caps, and I'll show you the reason why. Now, I will tell you that I've already put these screws in the shock caps, right? Just to save a little bit of time, I've already made sure that these screws go in the shock caps, because the last thing you want to do is get to this particular stage. You've got oil, everything's built, etc., and you go and it doesn't go in for whatever reason, the bad screw or something. So let's take a shock, and you can see they're still paired. So we'll go with that. We just put it on the top, and if you look at what I'm doing is I'm just literally winding it all the way down. I'm not messing about with any of the bleed screw or anything like that, and I'm just gonna take any excess off. But now, this is my method in bleeding. It's a very simple method. The bleed screw will come out, but it will stay in place, right? So that will just stay in place, ready. You heard it click. Just in case I did it again, we'll press down, and we will ooze out some oil, as you will see in a second. Hopefully you could see the oil, and if you can't, I didn't want to take that screw out, but I'll do it on the second one for you. Well, I could have done this. Sorry, let me just go to, I should have been on this zoom cam really, so you can see the oil oozing out of the bleed screw, as you can clearly see there. So let me just wipe that excess away, and at this stage I'm just going to see where we're at. So where we're at is it feels really good. It's in the right place, but I'm going to replicate, as you can see, I'm going to replicate that the bug is going around, or you know, it's working. So about 20-25 pumps, and then this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna press down. I don't know if I can switch it around so you can see. I'm gonna press down, and I'm going to, while it's pressed down, I'm gonna release. Listen. You didn't hear it because there's oil on it, but it did pop. And then once I release that, I'll screw it back in again, and that's just released any pressure. And now you can clearly see that I've got no bouncing back on the shock. So it's out where I want it to be, and then it would just go back to full, and it won't go all the way in, remember, because I've only got, I haven't done that adjustment yet. So there it is, and she stays there. So that's how I bleed the shocks. Straightforward way really, and once you've done it once or twice, you could repeat this. In fact, I think I might just actually do repeat it. I've still got a little bit of bounce back, so I'm just going to quickly just loosen that screw again, just to make sure. And once I've loosened the screw, I don't take it out, just leave it there, because it releases the air, and I screw it back in. And if you excuse me, if I just quickly go back to the cam, you will see, if I put it next to my hand, you'll see a little bit more oil trying to ooze out. Let's see that next around the bleed screw. So we just wipe that excess, and this one is ready. Now, with no further ado, I could of course carry on and show you the next one and the next one and the next one, but that's basically how I do the shocks on a 1/10 buggy. From here on in, it's a very simple scenario of just picking your springs and obviously ride heights and that kind of thing. So very straightforward stuff really on the shocks. Before I let you go though, there is one more thing I would like to show you, which is a little trick I use in making sure that I'm always on the right ride height, especially if somebody is going to adjust your car for you, right? So here's the shock. Wind the adjusting nut all the way to the top. Okay, now I'm quite particular that I like the adjusting screw to be laying downwards, not facing upwards. I'm quite particular. If you look at all my buggies, my adjusting screw is laying downwards on my shocks. The reason for that is because I feel that it doesn't get clogged up with all the rubbish, and when I need to, you know, do it, I'm struggling, or it rounds off or something like that. So this shock is going to be this way, the other one's going to be this way, so bearing that in mind, I will then turn that sideways like so, and I will put a mark, because this is all the way to the top, remember, I will put a mark on that shock collar there, and once I've made that mark, I can then say that's 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, and so on. And then every single time it's adjusted, I can say to someone at trackside, a teammate or friend or someone, can you just raise it by 1 turn or lower it by 2, or whatever I feel in a practice round or something similar, and they can see the mark on there, so they know 1 revolution. It's nice like that, rather than just guessing and then you have to measure it every single time and that kind of thing. So that's how I build the shocks. There's a couple of little finishing touches on the Gen 3 that we're going to do. All the shocks, all the cars built now, so we'll get back to you soon with it. And meanwhile, like they all say on these channels, don't forget to hit the subscribe, hit the like, and that kind of stuff. I'm Tony Evdoka, and I look forward to catching you on the next one. Stay safe, guys.